AliExpress has another sale coming up, and San Martin sent over two pretty cool watches that they're going to be offering up at the sale for me to take a look at. I've got a surprisingly sleek traveler's watch featuring a GMT movement that also has an outrageous adventuring dial, and a fresh, fun dive watch that'll be perfect for the summer. And yet again, San Martin is surprising me and impressing me at what they're able to do in this price range. For me, it's particularly exciting because not only are these insanely high quality for the price, they're also essentially original designs. With each watch San Martin sends over, I'm more and more impressed at their level of quality and value. It's just kind of insane what they can offer in this price range. But what's even more exciting for me is their attempt to produce original watches that aren't completely based on copies of existing watches like Rolex Explorers or things like that. And to my knowledge, neither of the two watches that they sent over today are copies of existing watches from other brands. But are the designs any good? Let's jump into it and take a look. Both of these watches were sent to me for free by San Martin, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this review. However, other than the watches themselves, I did not receive any additional compensation, nor did San Martin have any control over the content of this review. San Martin is currently running a sale on their AliExpress store right now, which will last until June 24th. So the prices you're going to see in this review are going to be based on those sale prices. And so if you're interested in getting any of these, this week is a great time to do it. If you're unfamiliar with San Martin, they are one of the best Chinese watch manufacturers around right now. Their watches are among the highest quality of any brand out there. I mean, seriously, when you consider the materials that they use, like sapphire crystals and ceramic bezel inserts, as well as things like clasps that feature tool-free micro adjustment, and the quality of the finishing that goes into their watches, they come shockingly close to the level of quality that you would typically find in luxury watches costing $2,000 or more. And yet most of their watches can be found in the $200 to $400 price range. The one area where they have lagged behind in the past is in originality, with many of their early designs being essentially direct copies of luxury watches with their own branding placed on it. But this is an area where San Martin has been looking to improve, and neither of the watches that we're going to be looking at today are copies of other watches. These are essentially original designs from San Martin. The first is a very sporty GMT that features a very clean design with beautiful finishing. And the second is what I would probably classify as a skin diver. This is a slim 40mm dive watch with some very bright, fun, fresh summer colors. These watches are coming in at two very different price points, with the GMT being priced at $283 and the skin diver at $179. So there's more than a $100 price discrepancy between these two watches. And after examining both of them, I think it's pretty easy to see why. The GMT is definitely a more premium watch from San Martin, and I think it's an excellent showcase of the level of quality that they are able to produce. And it's also one of the best designs from San Martin that I've seen yet, so let's start by taking a look at that one. This is the SN0129-GB, and it's what I would classify as a GMT sports watch with a very wearable 39mm diameter case. San Martin has been making a number of variations of this watch for the past year or so. They have it available in both a GMT version and a non-GMT version, and there's also been a ton of different dial options that have come out. And I think many people, myself included, would consider this San Martin's first truly great breakout watch. It has all of the excellent features and finishing that San Martin is known for, and it's in a watch that is an original design and looks great. Price-wise, it's in a similar category to what you would find from Seiko's Seiko 5 GMT line. But in terms of specifications, build quality, and finishing, it absolutely embarrasses what Seiko does in their Seiko 5 line. It's got a sapphire crystal, a screw-down crown, a bracelet with solid end links with screw pins for sizing, and a tool-free micro-adjust clasp that is made out of milled stainless steel. The brushing and polishing on the case and bracelet is far superior to what Seiko offers on their entry-level watches, and this features essentially the exact same movement. It has the Seiko NH34 automatic GMT movement inside of it. And so on those metrics alone, this watch makes an extremely strong case for purchasing it. And for once, I think the design from San Martin actually makes the watch even more compelling. The flat brush stainless steel GMT bezel looks great. It's highly legible and gives the watch a very tough look. but it's complemented by a very sleek case that features elegant swooping crown guards that give the watch an elegant and sophisticated silhouette. And the finish work on the case is kind of insane. The sheer number of polished accents is impressive on itself, but each one is finished brilliantly with crisp definitions between the brushed and polished segments, making for some incredible light play. And of course, when you put an aventurine dial on a watch like this, that light play is only going to increase all the more. The backdrop of the dial is a deep, dark navy blue, which is packed full of glittering specks of light. Depending on the way the aventurine is manufactured, aventurine can appear either somewhat subtle or very dramatic. This dial is one of the most dramatic that I've ever seen. Depending on your preference, that may not necessarily be a good thing. And in fact, I tend to prefer a more subtle dial when it comes to aventurine. But if you want to get that really strong starry night sky effect, this watch is going to give it to you. I only have two minor complaints about this watch. The first is that the links on the bracelet are rather large, which means that even with that tool-free micro adjust clasp, it's a little bit difficult to get a perfect fit. Depending on how many links I removed, I have to either keep the clasp all the way extended or all the way retracted, which means that ability to adjust the clasp on the fly without any tools may or may not be that useful on a regular basis. And the second complaint that I have is that the case back is completely sterile, which does give it a little bit of a generic look, but that's a fairly minor gripe. All right, let's move over to the dive watch, which is the SN0118-G. This comes in at a much lower $179 price point, and there's a number of reasons why this one is so much cheaper. The most obvious being that this one is a standard watch and not a GMT watch, so it features a less expensive movement in the Seiko NH35, which is still a great movement at this price point. However, you are also not getting the bracelet or the tool-free micro adjust clasp this time around. Instead, they went with a more cost-effective rubber strap. Another obvious difference between this watch and its more expensive cousin is that the dive watch here doesn't have as detailed of finishing. In fact, the case is completely brushed, and the case also lacks any bevels or chamfers to make it more interesting. So in terms of the case design and finishing, it's much simpler than the GMT. However, you are still getting a sapphire crystal, a screw-down crown with 200 meters of water resistance, and I couldn't find any information on the bezel insert, but I suspect that this is actually a ceramic bezel insert as well. It has a matte blue finish, and the markings are engraved with white paint filling them out. And so if this is a ceramic insert, that would be really impressive for a watch that's under $200. Since we're talking about the bezel, this is a good time to mention that the action is also very good on this bezel. It's a 120-click unidirectional dive time bezel. And this is a very confident, very solid feeling bezel. There is no backplay and it's very tactile. You can feel each click very clearly on your fingertips. It's fairly loud and ratchety and feels like a very precise piece of machinery. Interestingly enough, the hands and markers on this watch appear to be identical to the ones on the GMT. As such, they feature the same high-quality finishing with brilliant polishing and very sharply cut out hands. This handset in particular, I'm starting to see more and more on St. Martin's watches, particularly on ones where they're trying to do more of an original design. They're fairly simple hands, but they look very nice. That said, I do think they fit the theme of a GMT sports watch more than they do on a dive watch. On a dive watch like this, especially with all these bright, bold colors that they're using, I would have preferred to see something a little bit larger in the hands and the markers. They kind of work here, but I do think that's an area that could have been improved. What's not working for me is the color scheme that they've gone with on this particular watch. It is very bright and very fun, but I think that blue and orange does kind of clash a little bit, especially the very bold royal blue on the bezel and that kind of lighter, fresher orange on the dial. Again, everything is really well done. I like that the dial has a subtle texture to it, and I also like that they've gone with a bit of a gradient where the dial is lighter in the center and then gets a little bit deeper orange towards the edge. St. Martin has really perfected the manufacturing side of things, but I think the choice of colors here kind of shows that they still need some work on the design side of things. Colors like these make it seem like this watch is supposed to be a commemorative watch for a sports team. That's the only reason I can think why people might want a watch in this color scheme. So I guess if you're a Mets fan, this is a good one for you. Otherwise, you might want to check out some of the other color options that are available because there are actually quite a few different ones out there. And one other thing I would have liked to have seen change is that they went with a color matched date at 3 o'clock. And I think this is one of those rare cases where they should have gone with a white date instead. The date is completely taking the place of any kind of a marker in the 3 o'clock position. So when you have it color matched like that with no framing or anything, it sort of just looks like there's an empty space where there's supposed to be a marker. I think a white background to the date would have allowed it to substitute as the 3 o'clock marker a little bit easier here. Now, what this watch does have going for it is that it is incredibly well built. It has great specs and a great size. I'm especially impressed with the slimness. This watch is only 12.5 millimeters thick, but it features a pretty substantial domed sapphire crystal on top of it, which I think contributes to about 1 millimeter of the height. And if you look at the mid case, you can tell it's very slim. This helps it to wear great on the wrist and to make for a very comfortable watch. So I'm a bit more mixed when it comes to the dive watch compared to the GMT, but San Martin is constantly and rapidly evolving their designs, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some improvements on the next version of this. For their dive watches, I think I would like to see San Martin settle on a better, more bold set of hands and markers, while reserving the ones that are on these watches for their sports watches. But nitpicks aside, both of these watches are excellent value for the money. And if you like the way they look, I have no doubt that you would be happy purchasing either one of them. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up for today. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of these watches. And also make sure you head over to the AliExpress sale if you want to get the best price. That'll wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.